Good evening. Welcome to LexArt Inspires, which are our conversations about artists, life, and the creative spark. I'm Wayne Davis, the Interim Executive Director of LexArt. Before I introduce our guests, let me first extend a warm welcome to everybody and thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. With a special welcome to those of you who are newcomers to LexArt Inspires or newcomers to the LexArt community. Here at LexArt, our vision is to enrich lives and build community through the making of art and craft. And our two guests tonight are all about building community. We pursue our vision by supporting, encouraging, and inspiring artisans at all stages of their creative journeys and promoting community engagement with art and craft by providing studio space, gallery shows, classes, workshops, and special events such as this. We depend on the generosity of our members and supporters. If you enjoyed tonight's program and wish to support our mission, we encourage you to visit lexart.org and click to donate. Tonight, we're thrilled, really thrilled to be speaking with two of the most dynamic fiber artists working in New England today. Our first guest has exhibited widely, including a well-received current show, Faculty of Utterance, at the Boston Sculptors Gallery. And last year, a really wonderful show at the Fuller Craft Museum. I'm sure we're going to hear about that. She's the co-chair of the Weaving and Fiber Arts Guild here at LexArt. To meet her is to be energized by her passion for her art, her fertile imagination, dedication to community building and teaching, and most of all, her really warm, good humor. Please join me in welcoming Jodi Colella. Our second guest has exhibited at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston, Fuller Craft, Danforth Art Museum, and other museums and galleries throughout New England. She is a visual storyteller par excellence who reclaims cast-off fabrics and threads to convey women's narratives of mending and endurance, uncovering memories and revealing lived lives. Please meet Merill Comeau. Jodi and Meryl are both committed to maintaining community, art, and friendship with online programming that enriches our days and hopefully prompts smiles. Join them as they do what they love most, engage in some conversations, share their passions, share your passions, discuss inspiration, and just keep talking with each other. Please welcome Jodi and Meryl.
Thank you, Wayne. That was very, very nice. And we are so happy to be here at LexArt Inspires. This is a very generous invitation and program, and such an honor to have this opportunity to just sit here and talk about stuff with everybody and to have all these interested, wonderful faces. It's really kind of fun. So thank you, Wayne. Thank you, LexArts. And thank you all of you for coming. We are going to just have a casual chat between Meryl and myself like we always do. We have been known to close restaurants because we cannot stop talking. And we will start at 5 and leave at 10, kicking us out the door. And so now, Meryl?
Yes. So I'm just going to go through. Jodi and I have been talking about what we generally talk about, and so what we're going to talk about tonight is what we are working on, and then share who has been inspiring us and why, and then sort of what we're looking forward to. So to introduce ourselves to you, Jodi and I thought it would be kind of a treat if we just said 5 things that we like about the other person, and we haven't heard these. So I have no idea what he's going to say. But so Jodi, I think you're going to start. And so, we're going to share the 5 best things that we think about our friend.
Well, only 5? Jeez, this was really difficult. Some of them are compounds. So first of all, your intellect. Par none. I mean, I come to you for everything. Your openness, generosity, and honesty. You make me accountable, which I cherish. Your idea generation. I've never seen anyone generate ideas faster than you. I mean, I can't keep up. your energy, of course. And then lastly, and most importantly, your hair wraps. I always envy those and wish I could do them. So
I'll show you. I'll show you. All right, I have 5 things too. And what's interesting is, our relationship has really started out for professional reasons, and over time has, as colleagues, and over time has really developed into quite a rich array of ways that we overlap. And our 5 best things are going to overlap.
uh-oh.
Because one of my things was your energy. Your energy, you're so positive and constructive and forward moving. And I feel like you really soak life. And it's just great to be around that. It's, you give me a lift, which is wonderful. I also admire about you your high standards. I feel like you have incredible integrity as an artist. You're very exacting of yourself. You have high standards really across the board, but I never feel like you use them in a judgmental way toward anyone else. You just really expect goodness, greatness, and you expect a lot out of life, and I love that. I also said your generosity. I think your generosity and probably mutual generosity has really been something that has built trust over time, which I think is really important between colleagues that are often going after the same things or in the same exhibitions or talking in the same online presentation. Like the generosity really has to be there. I love the fact that you just tell it to me straight. And you called it honesty, and I'm like, tell it to me straight. Like there's not a lot of hidden agendas, which again is so helpful, not just in a friendship, but also in a colleague, that you're just going to tell me, if I do something that you don't particularly like, and you're going to tell me if you need something, and I just depend on you to be straightforward. And then the last thing I would say is, you just have such great soaking of sensual pleasures, like everything from the materials that you work with to the dinner that we're sharing, to going into a space and just enjoying the experience of the space. And it's just really fun to be around someone who just really is a sensual person and really perceives those things that I think bring such joy.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. I know, I was like tearing up as you were talking. We've never done this before.
No.
But so part 1 is we're going to share what we're working on. And I think we're going to, if you want to bring up the screen, Jodi, I think we're going to start with you.
This is me and Meryl at work in our individual studios. But we're starting with what we are doing right now. And right now, I have a show up at Boston Sculptors Gallery called Faculty of Utterance. It's a show, it's in some ways a retrospective in that it's a collection of bodies of work that I've created over the past 5 to 6 years for 4 different shows. And I brought them together because I felt like it brought another level of concept to each of the pieces to have them reacting with each other. There are some new works too. This show is called Faculty of Utterance, which is about the lack of voice, being silenced, not having the ability to be heard, in terms of like societal pressures, cultural tensions around identity politics, institutionalized prejudice, you'll see in the individual works, even something as broad as substance abuse, which you see the centerpiece in between the pillars, that's called Once Was, and that is the memorial that was part of the Human Impact Stories of the Opioid Epidemic exhibition at Fuller Craft Museum that just came down. And so even though it may not be as gender specific as some of these other pieces, it very much is about the silencing of voices who were not heard, and vulnerabilities and things like that. So this is a good overview of the whole space. Here's one of the sculptures called Acquiescence in Yellow. This is pretty large. Any of you who have seen, this is part of my Mary Jane series for obvious reasons, as you can see. anyone who has seen my work before knows of my smaller Mary Janes, which are about cultural pressures that many of us feel, but particularly women, governments and societal norms and all sorts of expectations getting in our space and sort of suffocating us. And so I had extended my efforts with the small found figurines to a point where I wanted to make a stronger statement. And you can't really find 3-4 foot figurines made out of ceramic. So I found another source of material culture that was sort of kitschy, equally kitschy and gaudy and nostalgic, and that's garden statuary made out of fake stone resin that I retreated and painted and glazed so that they look like they're figurines, but ceramic figurines, but they're really created from something else. But it's still a found object. And like I said before, I'm interested in working with found objects because they represent the material culture, which is a commentary on, everything I'm talking about in terms of identity. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to wait to your end of your thought, but
Okay.
so one of the comments is would be great to, as you're going through them, it'd be great to hear details about your techniques and the process of creating, which is what you're doing right now. But there's also a question of, can you tell us what the access is to the exhibition, considering COVID?
Oh, we have a very safe environment. In fact, I am gallery sitting tomorrow, 11 to 5. We keep front door and back window open. It's a huge space and we only allow 4 people at a time, masked, and of course sterilize the hands, 6 to 10 feet apart. And that's very easy to do because it's a very large space. And at 4, I put up the velvet rope and people have to wait until we have less than 4. So I'm there tomorrow, 11 to 5. And it's open Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 5. And then sadly, the show comes down. So I would love to see you if you're able to come tomorrow.
There is a video too, right?
There's a video on my website on the homepage. You click on the image and it brings you to YouTube.
And Boston Sculptor Gallery has the video as well, and I've posted the link to that in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. And as for my process, I told you a little bit about the figurines and why and how, but the enclosure, obstruction, suffocation, whatever we want to call it, you can see it's a little bit different here than it is here, is created by my original one started with yarn that I wrapped from the beginning to the end, but of course they were smaller. And when you get up to 3 and 4 foot sizes, I'd still be winding these things if I started with yarn to begin with. So what I do is I pad the centers and then start winding. So there's still a significant amount of winding, but I pad the center first. These are embroidered snapshots. I scanned original snapshots of women in their domestic spaces from the mid 20th century. You can see some of the dates on them, 59, 64. So I scanned them very high res, printed them out in high quality Epson inkjet printer, had them mounted on ultra board at Hunt camera, and then mounted those on frames, but not before I had the opportunity to embroider them. And it's I've sort of developed a technique for embroidering anything. Basically, all you need is a hole. So if you know where you want to put the thread, you just make a hole and that's where the needle goes. So that's just an overview of this technique since people are interested in techniques.
Size, Jodi?
Oh, these are 24 by 24 inches. And this one is 24 by 35. And again, you can see these women, what the message I'm trying to convey is how really limited their opportunity was they were sort of confined to their spaces, and if they were to have any agency anywhere, it was in their home. So that's what that is about.
You know, it's interesting, Jodi, I think when I imagine this in its size, it really sort of belies the original, you know, feeling you get from the little Polaroid, right? It's like, it's really,
Well, you know, in a very indirect or passive aggressive way, I'll put it, giving them space. So
yeah,
they're not confined to this room.
absolutely.
Now they have a presence on the wall and is part of a collection. Similar to my scorpion, but I won't digress. So next, this is very pixelated and low res because it's a capture from a video I just recorded. So in the age of COVID, we're developing a lot of online programming, teaching online, and also virtual gallery tours online, which we were just talking about. But I'm also having gallery visits with art professionals via Zoom in the gallery space I am, and they are where they are. And I today just published my first one with Jordan Eddy from Forming Concept Gallery in Santa Fe, Mexico. And he was asking me questions about the psychology behind obsessive art making. So that got a little personal, but I really loved these interviews. They talk about forming relationships. We really sort of cemented a lot of very deep relationship building and a lot of good thoughts. I learned so much from everybody. Everyone chose a different topic. So more of that will be coming. So Meryl, it's up to you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Unless what?
Unless anybody has any questions.
Well, I think they asked how the size, but also they said Rebecca would like people to know that they really should be seen in person.
Thanks, Rebecca. I hope to have a crowd tomorrow with a line out the door.
Kimberly Harding is actually curious about how you got started using the figurines.
It followed an impulse. I found my very first one. I wish I had the image here to show you. Was a little girl in a red dress and brown Mary Janes, and her arms were by her side. And it was really small. And it was during the blizzard, and I was feeling so confined. And so I took my frustrations out on this little figurine and ended up with this, my first Mary Jane called Thought Blizzard. So Meryl.
So yeah,
what are you doing?
Well, this has come down. We both had shows during COVID, which is interesting. I mean, this show was a show that was just in the Three Stones Gallery in West Concord. And I knew for this particular show that this gallery wanted work that showcased my work that works with nature and flora. And I had been off of that for a while. I'd been, you know, both of us, Jodi, I think, have been really responding to requests. And, you know, and so it was interesting to go back to this sort of request that I hadn't done in a couple of years. But it happened right at the right time, because during COVID and concerns about a pandemic, the idea that nature can symbolize for us this sprouting in March and bloom, and then, you know, desiccation, and then entering back into the earth with promises to come back again next spring. That cycle was just such a comforting cycle to work with. And it's a cycle that I've used symbolically a lot to represent our life cycle as well, and the ways that we go through phases, and our whole life is a series of phases and a circle.
Why don't you talk about your materials?
Right. So my materials are all repurposed materials. So that was another very comforting thing during COVID. So all of these materials have been given to me by people, discarded by designers, and I'm really surrounded by my community as I'm working on this. And actually the entry photo, the first photo, was me on the floor working on this big piece. And a big section of this is also material that I've composted. And so I'm a fanatic composter, and I have been for decades. And I compost the fabric and it gets worm eaten, and then I launder it. And when it comes up through, the holes come up through, and when I launder it, I actually find it disintegrated, and then I put it back together again. And it's really, it's an impulse to mend and to heal, and also to rewrite narratives. So for me, the narrative of the life cycle gets rewritten by bringing these materials from other places and putting them together like a puzzle. So, and I think you can keep going. I think also, I mean, this is a piece that's completely hand sewn. I really wanted to spend time focusing down on the hand stitch. I think that's a really, it's a luxury to have the time to do that. And certainly early COVID was giving me that. And so the piece becomes really an expression of human effort. As Wayne was talking about, you know, craftspeople forever have had this impulse to make, and their human life gets imprinted onto the work that they do, and it resonates to a person who can see it or touch it or whatever. And you keep going. One of the other things that is really interesting to me are weeds and the amount of invasive weeds we have. And I both admire them and find them annoying. So they've been studied by people in agriculture because they can seed themselves and thrive in the absolute worst conditions and still bloom and then send out seeds again to continue. So they're real survivors. And I think that's something to be really admired.
Well,
At the same time,
like a lot about resiliency.
yes, it's a lot about resiliency.
We need some right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, so here, this is weeds that are prominent in this area that grow in along the banks of the rivers that are invasive. And they also represent to me just the concern, and that felt really appropriate during a pandemic that we were being invaded. And I can see that Rebecca has a question. Do you hand stitch everything, or do you also use a sewing machine? And I really use a combination. And this often has to do with deadlines. So I might have to go to a machine stitch for a deadline reason, but also sometimes there are construction issues, and I really want to make sure if I'm using particularly difficult materials that they stay together. But I just spend oodles and oodles of time hand stitching.
You and Rebecca should meet. You're kindred spirits in this regard.
I'd love to meet you, Rebecca.
Yeah, she's a fiber labber.
Okay, I think there's only one more.
Okay. Oh, detail. Great.
Yeah, so, you know, the hand stitch is really, and the layering, and this one actually has a lot of transparency in it. This is just a detail. This particular plant, although it's somewhat invasive, it's also considered a healing plant. So that's just another way to use that nature as a way to sort of reflect what I'm going through, what others are going through. And this is, you know, this is one of the things that actually I've been called upon to teach a lot online during COVID. So I think we can go back to you next.
Actually, Meryl, a quick question. What is this invasive healer? What's the plant?
It's an anemone. And if you get the Japanese version, you know, its roots just don't quit, and it can really take over. But it's considered a healing plant for a lot of reasons, not necessarily because you ingest it, but because of its behavior in terms of how it blooms every day and the way that it spreads, like it has strength, it creates a mat of strength and things like that. And it's very responsive, like its leaves, depending on what's going on in the environment, its leaves may go down or they may go up, and same with the bloom, may close and then open again. So it takes care of itself.
And just to follow up with a second, Meryl and I are each talking about two things that we're doing right now, or we've done as in the past few months or something. And these are my fiber necklaces, fiber charm necklaces that I sort of developed during the COVID shutdown when I was stuck here, like everyone else. I could only use I couldn't even get to the studio on most days. I could only use what I had around the house. So I would make chains, and all these other sorts of charms, and I called them amulets. You know, they had special powers of healing because they allowed me to escape my world for a while. And also objects that I was using were my personal things around the house, which have an agency of their own. And this is something I teach a lot in my workshops, because another silver lining of the COVID is that by spending this time exploring all sorts of things that I never would have even thought of if I wasn't stuck at home and using and being, necessity is the mother of invention sort of thing, that I have several new workshop curriculums. And so I'm very thankful for that and very excited about it. It's all new work. Here's one. I'm also like learning metalsmithing, and this is a hand woven tape that I made on a homemade loom that is in several of my workshops, the techniques on how to do this. And all of this, again, I worked it out while at home during the pandemic. And I'm still working on these and developing. I have oodles of samples of charms and amulets and samples and baubles. And here's a mini tapestry on a copper pendant. This is something I'm teaching for a metals department at Worcester Center for Crafts. Just to give you an idea of how like freeing it is to be able to just play.
So this piece is still hanging up in the art lab of the ICA because the room is closed to the public, because it's the room where they bring artists in to do projects that will appeal to people from 5 years old up to the end of life, and that can do projects. And so that room cannot be open right now because it's full of work tables and it's very hard to do it with any safety. But so this piece is really made from an impulse that we all have like a favorite color, and we all think that colors express something about human life. And everyone who comes through the space gets the opportunity to make like a 4x4 self-portrait out of colorful fabric, and that comes together to make a community quilt, which honors the individual and also gives us a snapshot of who is the ICA's community. So I went from that to being quite overwhelmed in COVID with all of the social issues that we're struggling with in this country today, in the realm of politics, in the realm of the pandemic, in the realm of race relations, and went from color and just decided to simplify down into black and white. And so I've started to think a lot about phraseology around color. And there might be there's an image later in our slideshow that's sort of us first picking that apart. Like, what is it that's black? What does black and white thinking mean? What are shades of gray? And this is kind of an attempt to make sort of sense of really disparate points of view and disparate sources of materials. Yeah.
What size is this? Because the other one towered over you. I mean, that was massive.
Yes.
So I'm wondering about this one.
So this one has more of a relationship to the body.
Oh, okay, I see it actually.
And that's actually a piece of my clothing that I've painted black. And I'm thinking in terms of what burdens do we carry, or what wings set us free?
Cool. And also the choice of fabric significant, like doilies?
Yes. So they all have come from people I know. And they reflect that, but they also reflect what might be, which sort of autobiographically, they reflect what perspective might be influenced by my gender and my sex. So, so there are definitely references to the women's domestic sphere, and that is my old nightgown. So, it has that into it, and that some of the other fabrics in there are also very much fabrics from the domestic sphere.
Is this a detail?
Yes, this is a detail, and this is just this attempt to soften the edges between the really strong white and the really dark black. So how do we bring those things together in terms of mending and healing and making sense out of things that are different from one another, and also how do we soften their edges?
You both strike me as relentless optimists. In the face of all this stuff. Meryl, you spoke about the luxury of time in COVID, and Jodi, you actually told us what you did with your luxury of time, and Meryl, you found this invasive, but what were the healing and positive properties of that? what is it inside each of you that enables you to find that sense of optimism to reflect in your art? And I connected also with the fact that both of you really engage with some very serious social and political issues, but still with this sense of optimism.
You know, I've been told that my work has a combination of whimsy and threat. And so
Great.
I always love that phrase. So I embrace that. I think and I want to hear from everybody else, but I kind of feel like for me, if it comes across as very positive because I I sort of relish having this escape in the obsessive art practices that I engage in. And if you do something obsessively, you usually end up with a result that you don't always have to appreciate it or not, but it's still a result of time spent and of feelings acknowledged and all sorts of things. I think that's just the impulse of an artist. And I'd like to hear from other artists in the group. But Meryl, what's your answer to that?
Well, there was one question in here about using adhesives, so I thought I would answer that. And my goal is always not to use adhesives, although I do have acid-free glue, and sometimes I have to hold things down with little dots of glue. But glue, any adhesive for me really sort of either gums up the needle on the sewing machine or makes it difficult for me to hand sew. So I actually have just hundreds of safety pins and stick pins, and that's how I tend, and I just delicately get it together and then move it up off the floor, because I work on the floor because it's so large, it's too hard to do on a table, but I move it up to the floor and then start stitching. I hope that answers that.
So you know, Judith Felton just asked in the chat, what sources of inspiration, like other artists and things like that? Mm-hmm. She asked more than that, but those were two of the aspects. And so this portion of the conversation, Meryl and I are going to share, you know, two artists who are inspiring us right now. And for me—
Wait, Jodi, before you begin, this is another point where we would love for you to write in the chat, who are you looking at? Who's inspiring you? If you want to write something longer, even like why are you looking at that? Why is it inspiring you? But go ahead, Jodi, talk about your folks that you're drawing.
Well, this is Sonia Gomes, and many of you probably know of her because she's been receiving she's 77 and receiving finally the acclaim that she deserves. She's Afro-Brazilian, and she uses this is, I feel like she's kind of like in my art family. This is a term we use in a group that we belong to, because she uses clothing that's donated to her by people. And then she uses feminized crafts to transform them into sculptures and other things. She likes to think of feminized crafts from the margins of history, that the fabrics bring the history of who the clothes used to belong to, and that she gives them a new significance. She likes to think of her work as expressive from the inside out, and you'll see here she uses, like a lot of us are talking about in this chat, she uses the clothing that's given to her and she cuts it up and transforms it and stitches it and found objects around her and makes it into other sculpture. Here's a close-up shot, an example of like what she's done with some donated clothing. And you can see that it's how expressive it is, and it's very transformed. And it becomes something else other than the original clothing that she was given.
I love the transparent gloves.
I know, and how she filled them with beads and things. So I find her inspiring. So Judith asked like where we get our inspirations, and so it's looking at other artists and understanding. Like I tend to respond viscerally, visually in a visceral way, and then I investigate, try to unpack why, and use that as inspiration for me to mine what my instincts are telling me to do, or to me to know or to recognize what it is that I'm trying to do. And it's not necessarily that it's going to look like this, but it's inspiring me to go off on my own path. And I do look at Pinterest sometimes because I am a technique junkie. I just can't get enough of learning new crafts and learning new techniques and new skills. I'm just constantly trying it out. It's like I love engineering sculptures and putting them together. And that, my biggest inspiration is teaching, because of the millions of perspectives that come together when you teach individuals who come together to make. And I'm always in awe of someone's point of view. It's like, I never would have thought of that, and that is genius. And it's so you. And so that always, and I mean, I come home from workshops just jotting down all these ideas I have from things that I saw that day. So hope that answers that for you, Judith. And shall I go, any other questions before I go on to the next slide? Okay. Oh, you're up, Meryl.
Oh, so this is Tamashi Jackson, who this work was in the Whitney Biennial, which this past year, which I would say what inspires me is like Jodi, you know, the physicality and the visual of the piece is certainly what draws me into in the beginning. And then as I enter the work or enter the space of the work, then my brain starts pulling out common threads, you know, perceiving that there are commonalities. And I really think of art as visual communication. And for me personally, it's an effort or an impulse to try to connect with other human beings. So I do really care about the viewer. I hope the viewer is drawn into my work and is also, as they're coming close, they're finding entry points and they're finding common threads, whether they know what my thoughts were or not. So, and Tamashi Jackson is someone who does these densely layered explorations of with found materials. So I that's one of the ways I enter her work, is that she uses found materials as well, and that she also starts from an autobiographical place. But also, like me, she also thinks about thinks about art history. She thinks about social history, and she thinks even about legal histories. And this work is exploring Seneca Village, as the history of Seneca Village, which was a free Black neighborhood and community in New York City that was forcefully taken away and and that's what makes Central Park today. So every time I go to New York, almost every time, I end up walking through Central Park. And so, you know, this is a way of, she's bringing Central Park into the museum and commenting on Central Park. And now when I go to Central Park, I will be thinking about her work as I go through Central Park. So it's bringing the work out of the museum. And that is just, to me, it's just a really rich kind of relationship. And the other thing that I love about her, the last thing I'll say about her, is just that, you know, as Wayne was saying, you know, Jodi and I can really get kind of caught up in sort of really serious topics. But the aesthetic pleasures of color and surface and materials, I hope we're always still very committed to those, exploring those and making those aesthetic decisions based on the things that we're thinking. And you can see in her, the big piece, the picture of the whole piece, that she's working with complementary colors and how do they balance. And as we go through the imagery of hers, you can see that she's thinking about matte versus shiny. She's thinking about recognizable imagery versus abstraction, and she's thinking about the balance in the yellow, the red, and the orange, and how they blend together, and then how does that relate to the shiny and the reflectivity. So I love her work. I think it's incredibly rich.
I'm receiving a chat here from Vernice. Pardon me if I am mispronouncing. Seneca Park had cotton fields in Black farmers, no concern for what occurred.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting history if people have a chance to research it.
So my next artist is Dorothea Tanning. She's a surrealist, married to Max Ernst, by the way, his final wife. And she started out as a painter and does these fantastical, whimsical, dark, fairy tale type paintings of little girls in tough spaces. And then later in her life, she turned to sculpture, sort of abstractly representing a lot of the characters in her paintings. And later in her life, but she was a sculptor, but before she became a poet. So she had like 3 careers. The one to the right is Dorothea's, and you can see the resemblance to the one to the left, which is mine. And the one to the left is called Feeler, and that cavity goes all the way into the bowels of the sculpture. It's very large, and it's made from a reconstructed, very large teddy bear that I cut up and put back together. And it's meant to be a surrealist beast that when you stand in front of it, you kind of get sucked into that hole. And I just love the, again, the similarities here, because I think of her as part of my art family. So Meryl, your final artist you want to talk about is your inspiration.
Yes. This is Carolina Casado, and she just had a show at the ICA the same time that I was putting my work up. I was going up to visit hers. And this is an ongoing project. She's been working on this for a lot of years. Some of you maybe got to see her while she was there. And she's talking about the damming of the transnational corporations damming waterways, and what happens as people get displaced and the destruction of their livelihoods in Latin America. What I love about this work is these are fishing nets that were, vital and utile and really prized possessions of people who fished, and they can no longer use them. But they gave their prized possessions to this artist because they trusted her to tell their story. She lives among them and learns about their issues, and then she makes pieces that are evocative of this sense of loss and deep.
So Meryl, here we are back at narrative again.
Yes, really. Yeah, she's really a storyteller, and a couple of things that she does that I love in her storytelling is she takes objects and materials that are someone else's, and then she transforms them with her own visual language. So these are dyed so that her language gets added and layered onto the meaning of the net in the first place. And again, this aesthetic decisions in order to tell a story that she's trying to tell. And she really investigates. I love her. I have a list of things that she investigates. She said, I investigate ideas of flow, assimilation, resistance, control, nature, culture. I'm like, yeah, baby, you go, girl. And I would say that we all need water. We all need to survive, and we all need ways of prospering and keeping a roof over our head and feeding ourselves. And you feel that when you're in the presence of this work. It has a level of spirituality to it, as well as the storytelling. And I feel like when I was in the presence of it, I felt a real sense of connection and comfort, even in the face of really difficult issues. I mean, that's one of the things, Wayne, that you were kind of getting at is, how do you stay optimistic in the face of what we have to face today? And this is a detail of her work. And, I would say a lot of these are like mementos, and she takes these mementos and puts them into a piece. And when she's with this work, making this work and afterwards, she's feeling a human connection. And that's what the human relationship, the interaction that she has with these people that she's working with in Latin America, it's in the relationship to other people that makes you feel like you can go on. Like when you find love and compassion with another person, I think that makes you get up the next day and feel like you can continue to go on. You can continue to resist certain things. You can continue to work toward change. And that is very evident, I think, in her work, is she's optimistic even in the face of serious, serious issues. All right. So next we're going to talk about, we were going to talk a little bit about teaching, I think, Jodi.
Yeah, so like we've talked about who inspires us, and now we're talking about what inspires us, you know, to be specific. But here, what inspires me is working with community on collaborative public art pieces. This is a image of this public art piece that was exhibited at Carey Memorial Library in Lexington. So those of you from Lexington will be familiar with it. And it was all about mending in terms of politics, sociology, and ecology. So about the fashion industry that exploits third world countries, about what damage it does to the earth in terms of wasting resources and exploiting earth resources, and also the benefits of mending socially with people who work together and work with their hands. So I spent a lot of time teaching people simple things. And we had this 8-foot embroidery hoop installed in the library for 2 or 3 months. It came down like the week before the shutdown. It was crazy. And here are my students. This is one of the Fiber Lab groups. And they provide me with an inordinate amount of support and inspiration. And we have just, even with COVID, we are forging through, and we have a fall season full of programming. We're meeting online. I'm doing demos online. We're doing projects for charities. We're doing projects between ourselves. And so we can overcome this. We are lonely. We talk a lot about it. We're all going through trauma, but we have each other. And that's like, what else is there, right? And here is just an example of freedom with play. This is a student piece from an improvisational weaving class I taught, I think, before COVID. And just the freedom of material and color and play, and just, it captures a spirit like nothing else. So this is what inspires me, this sort of thing. We want to know, first of all, that, like, again, we're seeing silver linings. I terribly miss the in-person classes because there's an intimacy there and a spontaneity that's not always easy to recreate online. We can do it other ways, but we can't recreate it the same way as in person. So, but the silver lining is that we can all be in touch with each other and learning from each other, even though we are in isolation. And actually, I've been taking a lot of classes myself. I just took one with a woman who's in Chile, learning how to do micro basketry. I mean, yet another obsession that I'm like going down a rabbit hole with. And next month, I'm taking one from a woman in the UK. And these are women I would never have the opportunity to work with in person. So I feel incredibly blessed that I had that opportunity because it was offered online. You know, it is different. There are issues, but there's also benefits. And so I, as an educator and someone who was doing a lot of online programming, I'm constantly trying to find out any pointers, requests, concerns, or things you celebrate about online teaching, anything you want to share that way. Meryl and I will really take to heart and bring it with us as we progress with these online classes that we're doing.
So I think you can move to new imagery, and Jodi, as I go through some of these. So
yeah.
People are active dialogue and sharing art and monthly critiques. Sylvia is sharing, and Judith is talking about taking classes online and giving and listening to artist talks. Michelle is saying taking lots of classes through Zoom. And Callie is saying learning lots of different techniques online through Textile Artist Stitch Club, which is something that we can talk about. So is, looks like so is Margaret England, who also did that. Adria is talking about not only taking classes, but making presentations about art history online. And Rebecca's saying the silver lining of the quarantine is I'm able to join so many art talks and classes around the country.
Right.
I could have never taken lace making class in New York before. And
look what Marguerite's talking about.
I know, Textile Study Group in New York, woohoo!
I just joined.
Yeah, it's a great organization, and they have online Zoom meetings and small room chats, one of which is coming up. So yes, and I'm definitely, she says, Meryl's part of our membership. Yes, I am. I wish I could go to more of the events. That's like on my ambitions for next year is to go to more of the Textile Study Group events, if once we can travel again. But so this is actually, the few of you that weighed in from textileartist.org will recognize this because this is a screenshot from the demo video for textileartist.org. I've been teaching too. I think you can keep going down. And then one of my favorite things, I know there are a bunch of Art Cloud Network people that are with us tonight. I'm in Art Cloud Network, and I've been teaching sort of life balance and professional development. And this is a shot of my desk as we were having a meeting. And I love teaching it, and I'll be teaching it again in January. I'll be teaching it for the Photographic Resource Center. Some similar things. So you can look for that. Both Jodi and I will be teaching at LexArts, and that's we're so thrilled to be sponsored by LexArts tonight, and we would love to see some of you here tonight sign up for our classes at LexArts. Jodi will be teaching in the fall. I believe I'll be teaching after the first of the year, so we just wanted to talk about the teaching because it's really a two-way street. We really believe in the wisdom in the room. That there's a lot of wisdom in there. Oh, this is like our life under COVID. You can see my iPhone being balanced on a board that's stuck between heavy books on a kitchen chair.
Oh my gosh, I never saw that before.
Yeah, that's sitting on top of my table. That's my fancy filming device for my demo for the textileartist.org.
And this is my fancy. This is where I teach from. You can see I have a fancy camera, and you can see the image on the screen of the demos. It works remarkably well, and in some ways, I have to say, some of the classes I'm taking, I see things better. It's kind of like, it doesn't make sense to go, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to go to a football game because you're up in the bleachers and everybody's this big. So I watch it on TV. So I used to. I don't anymore. I used to watch football. I don't. But politics, but it's the same sort of thing with it can be the same advantages when you're doing this online stuff because you get very up close and personal.
I do think there's there are hidden, people think of it as online. In some ways it's easier for them to take it because they don't have to go anywhere, and and they can take classes from around the world. And I have to say that it's a lot more, I find it a lot more work as a teacher to organize and provide the curriculum online. I think it's so it has its silver linings. It keeps us from being disconnected, but it's been a challenge. I find it a challenge.
I'm finding that the programs I'm putting together for online are so much better organized than the ones I did in person. Because in person, I counted on my ability to just go with the flow, which is a joy to do. But you can't really count on that when you are online. So you really have to dot all your I's and cross all your T's. Oh, someone says part of what's wonderful about Zoom is that we see everyone in their home environments. And by definition, that strips away some artifice. Yes, see my messy room here? Think the nightly newscasters broadcasting from their living rooms with the cats curled up in the couch behind them.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely silver linings. When Art Cloud Network had their annual meeting, which is a 3-day meeting online, there was actually, in some ways, more enthusiasm and intimacy in that Zoom experience as a result of that Zoom experience than it is when we meet together. So, and even though we share meals together when we meet and so forth, there was There was something about that Zoom environment that created this incredible enthusiasm. Oh, by the way, our Club Network actually has an open call for members. It's a U.S. and Canada organization. So go to the Art Club Network website and request an info packet if you have any, and find out more about them, or contact me and I'll tell you about it. But that's something to think about.
Well,
Because one of the things.
Okay.
I was just going to say, one of the things Jodi and I really think about and talk about a lot are the artist groups and communities that we are involved in and how they sustain our practice. And, I was so impressed to look when I first, got contacted by Jodi about LexArts to find out that LexArts has 9 guilds. I mean, this is just a really important way of navigating life as an artist, is to have these professional support organizations. I had the benefit of spending a fair amount of time with people from the Fiber Arts Guilds of Pittsburgh. And I was like, wow, why do we not have a Fiber Arts Guild in Boston like they do in Pittsburgh? Well, it turns out there is a guild that works with fiber that's at LexArts.
Yeah, we just became Fiber Arts. It was a weaving guild, and now we're weaving and fiber arts, which is like awesome. We're going to bring the basket makers back, right, Wayne?
We sure hope so. The basket makers were one of my personal favorites over the years. I just love them to death, and their work. And we sure hope we can attract some back to join our Weaving and Fiber Arts Guild. That would be just the most wonderful thing.
Next, we would like to project forward. So all of us are at a crossroads, more or less. We've had the pandemic shut down behind us. We're trying to sustain ourselves in the current isolation status with the unknowns that are going forward. So what do we have to inspire us going forward? And for me, any of the Weaving Guild members here, don't laugh. I'm teaching myself to weave. I just became a new weaver a year ago, not even a year ago. And I've got the few times I was able to meet in person, I learned so much. But we have online meetings with the Weaving Guild, and I still learn from them when I'm able to attend. And so I want to lose myself in this tangled mess. And that's what I'm looking forward to going forward, is more of this and more of this. This is a project that I started during the shutdown. I taught myself how to inkle weave. And I did this word project. You know how dictionary.com comes up with a word a day? I have the app, so it comes up every 8 a.m. every morning on my phone. And it's usually tied into the current events. So I took the word a day from each day, starting March 13th to the end of May. And I'm weaving it into inkle. And I have like spools and spools of it. And this was, believe it or not, one of the words. And it kind of reflected how I felt at the time. Apoplectic, if you kind of read it, because it is kind of sketchy.
So someone in the chat is saying they'd love to learn this form of weaving. And Molly is saying, and Mandy is saying, yay for weaving. That isn't a tangled mess. You have order in there.
Thanks, Mandy.
And Lynette is also saying yay for weaving. And Bernice looks like she's suggesting someone, a startling, eclectic artisan, who I think, she's suggesting. So, I think maybe
we should look into her for sure.
We should. So Jodi, I think we only have a couple more images. I'm tempted to just really get through them quickly. And
my other passion. I'm learning metal arts, metal smithing with my things, but that's what I'm looking forward to too. But we already know about that. Meryl?
So I want to go back to some installation work I've done, which is multiple pieces engaging the wall, the floor, and an element. And this is a project that has taken a lot of research on the women of Ware Farm. So it's a historic research project. Okay, next. And then here's some of my beginning explorations of the phraseology of color. So if you have a phrase where color is used to sort of tell a human behavior, like rose-colored glasses or shades of gray or whitewashed, you can put that in the chat, because I'm collecting these phrases where we use color to represent human behavior. And maybe I'll make a piece based on one of your phrases. And this is actually, well, I just broke a bone in my foot, so I've been on crutch. I haven't even been up to the studio much, so I'm on crutches and I will be for weeks. But when I left the studio, this was what I was going to do because I really feel like I needed some time to play. So this was the beginning of play. All right, I think we should wrap up, Jodi. I think we might have, here's the last screen, which you can see the artist names on the bottom. I'm hoping you can see that, and how to spell them. We have, the galleries that we mentioned, just so in case you want to know what galleries those are, organizations that we may have mentioned, and other venues where we may teach. And so please feel free to do a screenshot of that and keep it in your notes.
Oh, what I wanted to mention is that Fiber Lab will be, anyone who's ever been a participant of Fiber Lab in the past or going forward even, we're having an exhibit at LexArt in the new gallery when it opens. So you all saw those images of that new gallery. So that's something I'm looking forward to as well. So sorry, Meryl.
Oh, that's okay. That's good to get that in.
Yeah.
So, we've shared what we are working on and what inspires us and what we're diving into next. And we really appreciate LexArts. I know you have some things you want to say, Wayne. I just want to make sure I say thank you first, that, we really appreciate this opportunity. And we want to thank you for providing a place to meet people, because there's a lot of people here we haven't met. And we want everyone to know Jodi and I, we're imminently findable. We're open to questions. We're out teaching and meeting people, and you can find us online. So keep in touch. And then Jodi, I think you had something you wanted to say quickly, and then we'll turn it over to Wayne.
Yeah, I just want to say, everybody, keep going, keep making, keep exploring, keep being curious, keep learning, and let's just keep staying together during this time of social distancing.
So thank you both so much. This has just been a wonderful evening. I know a couple of people have said in the chat that they can't quite see all the names on this last screen, so we'll send all that information out to you via email. We'll also send you the link to the video of this, so that you can share it with your friends. This was a night to be savored. The whole reason we're doing this series is we wanted to find out where you find your inspiration, so that it could help us as artisans, as just people in society, as citizens, to help us to find our inspiration. And I hope each of our viewers or participants tonight will think about, how have you been inspired by what Jodi and Meryl have shared with us this evening? I can tell you how I have been inspired. It came to me somewhere in the middle of your talk. The two of you are doing what artists always do, project into the future. And I think you have given me the concept, and the two of you absolutely must help us lead this. 2021 must be the year in which we figure out, how do we mend the rent fabric of our society? We know we have that politically, socially, and economically, and of course, health-wise. And that's what we are all going to need to do collectively in 2021. We have to figure out how to do it. And the two of you have given us so many ideas about how we can do that individually and collectively. So a huge, huge thank you to you for sharing that with us. Thank you again to the two of you. And any of you who have appreciated what we've done here, please come back. We are a nonprofit, and so I'll just make the standard public radio pitch. Please visit our website and donate whatever you feel comfortable donating. We would very much appreciate it. So thank you all, and please do put things into the chat, and we'll keep this up live, so anyone who needs to go and do something else, feel free to do so. But if folks want to unmute themselves and linger on after the show has ended, we've done that a couple times before, and that's always a little bit of fun too.
Here.
Yeah, where else are we going to go? There's a pandemic going on.
I hope people are reading the chat because, I mean, it's just a wonderful list.
And we will save a record of this chat.
Okay.
Thank you both so much. It's been wonderful. Really enjoyed it.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Sonia.
I too have loved it.
Hi, Kimberly.
Thank you so much.
We're trying to catch all the voices. Where are they? So yeah, this has been really fun, and everyone. Oh, and Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Yeah, Rebecca's going to be in the Fiber Lab exhibit.
Oh,
Good.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
we're going to try to make space for her pandemic house.
It's pretty big.
More on that later.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a big parking lot, Rebecca.
That's fine.
And Molly's here somewhere. Molly's also going to be.
Yes, Molly was just.
Charlotte, yeah. And Molly does little weavings for comfort, and that can bring her joy. And Charlotte does a lot of felting. We have a great video of her that's going to be part of the exhibit. And I'm sure there's people I'm missing here. Tarumi's going to be in there. Cassandra is a fiber labber. I don't see Cassandra here tonight, but anyway. So any questions, anybody? About anything, like what I'm having for dinner even, that's okay.
How's your dog doing?
Oh my God, she's such a sweetheart. Thank God we got over the first 3 or 4 weeks, because now I'm telling you, she's such a love. I love her to death.
Yeah, well, we enjoy your photographs.
Yes. Oh, I hope so, because you're getting a ton of them. But guess what her name is, everybody?
I think it's Stitch, isn't it?
Yes.
Very apropos.
Yeah, and she's little.
Yes, tiny.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been, what a great idea. And I feel like I've gotten to know you both a little bit better too.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
this is why places like LexArts and those other institutions we listed on that final sheet are so important. You know, we can't do this alone.
You know, this is a,
good times.
yeah, and I'm really happy too to have learned more about LexArts. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know about it, and so you know. Now
And where do you live, Sylvia?
I'm in Lancaster.
Okay, that's not far.
I know. I know. So you know, now I know, and I'm going to be checking you out.
Great.
And well, we're doing online, lots of online, not just
Yeah.
Meryl and me, but other instructors as well. So you should check it out. And the Fiber Arts Guild is going to be expanding very soon.
Yes.
That's so exciting.
Yep.
Right, and so what I would suggest is when our new gallery is open, and we have when we have our holiday marketplace in there, which should be somewhere mid to late November, but certainly in December. We'll have online reservations because we can only have, I think, probably 8 people in at a time. So make a reservation, come on in advance. We can also arrange to show you around the rest of the building so you can see the weaving studio, the metal workers, ceramics, and all of that. And
Woodworking. Yeah, it's an amazing place. It's a real gem of a place. So it's a, what do they call it? It's a sleeper. It's
And
like,
it has been a sleeper, but it's not anymore.
not anymore because it's
Thanks to Wayne. And the other,
thank you, Molly.
the other thing to think about is think about the 3rd Thursday of every month. And that's when we have a program like this. So the next month we'll have something else.
Well, we have
I forget.
next month is and now for something completely different month where we have 2 wonderful cartoonists.
Ooh.
And we'll be talking about dogs and cats. So what's not to like?
Yeah, gotta tune into that one.
Yep.
Thank you. I just want to
First
say
Thursday,
so much.
first Thursday of the month.
Thank you for tonight, but also for this wonderful, what you've created in the community that you've created with the chat. It's been, your presentations gave me so much inspiration, and also hearing what other people are doing, especially now, has, I don't know, it was just really wonderful. So I want to say thanks for that. And to LexArt, you're also new to me, so it's good to learn about you. And thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you, Jessica.
We'll see you again.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you too.
Oh, I recognize that voice.
Yeah,
That's
that's
Lynette.
Oh, Lynette, I see you. Okay.
It was really a great time, and I think I'm going to have to get a membership. I realized that LexArts gave me a scholarship to college because I went to high school in Lexington.
Oh, I love
Really?
it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
It was like just 10 years ago, really, basically.
Sorry.
But I like to pay it forward, you know.
Actually, Lynette, could we talk to you more, because one of the things actually that we wanted to do this year is the scholarship program continues, and we'd like to expand it. And we've got a couple of interesting things going. One of the things that came out of a conversation we had with one of our scholarship students from this year, a Lexington High School grad who is going to Rhode Island School of Design, she said, you know, what I really could have used was some help putting together my portfolio. And so we're actually working on putting together a class for regional art students to help them develop their portfolios for submitting to college art programs. We have that and other ideas, and I would just so love to talk to someone who was a LexArt scholarship beneficiary 10 or so years ago. That would be lovely.
Yeah, sure. Okay, it was 11, but yeah, we can definitely talk.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it.
If you have my email address, feel free to email me anytime.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Lynette.
Sure.
Oh, what a nice evening.
Yes.
That is.
This
Okay.
is a lot of fun, Wayne and Molly. And I think, Matt, I never met you in person, but I know all about you.
You
Nice
do.
to see you.
You too, Jodi, and Meryl. Nice to see
Yeah,
you,
I
and
know.
thank you.
Oh,
And
I forgot.
I look forward
Thank
to working with you.
And same here. Yeah.
We're going to hang a show in January. Is that
Yes.
right?
We have to. We still have to set the date, but
Okay.
it was a casualty of our handicap lift casualty, which delayed the construction, which bumped the show, which otherwise would have been the show that we were able to squeeze in this fall. So that was unfortunate. So this reminds me, I forgot to make my crack about the Bedford Mafia that we had as part of this series. So for those of you who don't know, so Matthew, our new executive director, is Bedford native, as is Merill Comeau, as was just about everyone else who were on our our first two LexArt Inspires programs. It was quite by accident, but we realized that actually Lexington Arts and Crafts is a hotbed of activity for Bedford artists.
Interesting.
Yes, it's true.
Well, you're right next door.
That's
Like
right.
ideal, right?
Yeah.
It's the greater
Right.
metropolitan area.
Well, I hearken from Somerville, and I know Pat Pravani comes from the Cape somewhere, or Duxbury or something. So people come far and wide.
They do. Some come from Lunenburg. Some come
No
from
way.
and even Lancaster. We're going to get some.
I know. Sylvia, Sylvia is a colleague of ours. We're going to get her to join.
Right, exactly. We've got
Yes.
Sylvia, they have a painting guild as well, you know.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Although I'm definitely in the sculpture camp right now.
good.
Do you do ceramics? I can't remember.
Pardon?
Have you ever worked with ceramics? I can't remember.
Oh, I played around with it when I was an undergraduate, but
They have great classes at the Ceramics Guild.
yeah.
I want to do a hand building one.
I think,
Yeah.
Sylvia, I could see your work in ceramic.
Yeah, sure.
Because sometimes it has that feel, even though it's not made out of ceramic.
Yeah, yeah. I've been interested in looking into maybe, I think it's called paper clay.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Well, like you, I'm always interested in exploring new materials. I mean, that's what keeps me going, you know? It's just it's so exciting.
Well, that's actually one of the things as I spoke with members of LexArt about, you know, what is it that's important to you about this community that we have and so forth. It's that with the guild structure, there's a place that feels really like home. That's my medium, what I work with, but also it's that the sort of creative collisions of seeing people working and creating in other mediums that they otherwise wouldn't be as exposed to, and finding out what they're working on and getting interested. So, you know, we have a number of people who are members of multiple guilds, but also many people just explore, take classes, or do whatever. And that's been a lot of fun for a lot of people.
I think this has been a wonderful evening, and I want to thank everybody for being there and coming and participating, and I hope we'll see you in October.
All right. Thank you again.
Thanks, Molly.
Okay.
I'm
Good
gonna
night.
sign off.
everybody.
I'm gonna sign off too.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
There's a glass of wine calling my name.
Meryl.
All right. Good night, everyone.